120 seconds. 110 seconds. 100 seconds. 90 seconds. 80 seconds. 70 seconds. 60 seconds. 50 seconds. 40 seconds. 30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
'My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Nyesha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends, once again, it is indeed time to get our talk on. It's Morning Talk with me, your host, J.C. McCauley, along with the champions of talk. This morning, talk champion, Jonathan Small, is in the house. Jonathan, how you doing?
Doing fine, Stan. Seemed like the week went by very fast.
Week went by too fast. With the weekend.
The weekend, but it's like just yesterday that I was sitting here. I mean,
it does. It feels like a blur.
Pretty fast, but a lot of things did happen throughout the week. Even though the week go by fast, you always try to get some things done, productive and pleasurable too. You know, so hopefully your weekend like you was very active in a lot of events this past week, for you at least.
Yeah, it was very, very busy. Very busy. Very, very, very busy. Production week. It's been a long time since I had that much busyness. Yeah, we had 3 productions, and they were you know, we had like a school building committee on Monday. Tuesday was the Hartford Board of Education, and then Thursday was a shoot in Mount Holyoke, Mass.
Okay, never heard of that place.
And near Amherst. They told me Amherst, but I got Mount Holyoke. Maybe Mount Holyoke is in Amherst. I don't know, but that's where it's so. It's like been super busy this week. Super busy.
Well, it's kind of like something that you like to be busy. You like to stay active. I mean, you did a lot of outdoor events as well, but you did, I guess your whole week, as you just mentioned, was extremely busy from the beginning of last week towards the weekend.
Yeah. But a lot of equipment moving.
Right.
See, I don't mind taking the camera out. I love being behind the camera. But the big shoots, you got to take everything apart, pack everything all up, move it, and unpack it, put it back together, do the production. Then you got to take it all back down again. You got to,
So when people see you out in the community having video shoots, it looks like you're enjoying yourself and having fun. But the preparation that it takes to get to that point when you're putting something as a production, maybe all of your activities outdoor weren't video production. I mean, some type of event on Pratt Street you were at. So maybe everything is not always
that like campaign and stuff.
Okay.
And just out and about and documenting the fact that you're out and about so you see it. I'm out and about anyway, but a lot of times it's nobody cares what you do. So but during a campaign they do.
Right.
So.
Well, big night tonight, I believe, the Democratic Convention.
And the big convention tonight, it's a fait accompli. I guess that's how it is. Nothing is determined until after the fact. So yeah, but tonight is a big night in political circles here in the capital city, Hartford. Tonight is that big night.
Are you nervous, concerned, interested?
I'm neither nervous. I'm respectfully. I'm not like concerned, like oh my God, no. I mean, but I'm not the slightest bit nervous.
You're not slightly nervous, okay. No. So you're very kind of calm and cool, collective, and we'll see how things turn out.
Yeah, a lot of people have been having meltdowns over the weekend. From Friday to like right now, people are trying to figure out how to jump out the window of the basement to terminate their existence.
Meaning, because are you being sarcastic?
I'm being sarcastic because it's hard to jump to your death from the basement window.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, obviously, it is a good political season. We have a very tremendous elected official this morning who brings a lot to the table.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation with your guests this morning. Jonathan brings guests to the table from all over the world, and today we're a little bit closer to home, so should be a good conversation. So with that, why don't we just jump right into it?
Okay, this morning on Morning Talk Live with J. Stan McCauley Talk Show, we have a very politically sound but business-orientated financial specialist, and has a tremendous financial background. And he's part of a big development project in the town that he serves as mayor. And we definitely feel very pleasured to have him with his expertise this morning on Morning Talk Live with J. Stan McCauley Talk Show. The guest that we have this morning is no other than the chief elected official, chief executive office, chief mayor of the town of East Hartford, no other than Mayor Michael Walsh. Good morning, Mayor. How are you doing?
Good morning, Stan. Good morning, Jonathan. Thank you for having me. And on the Monday of the Hartford Democratic Town Committee delegate selection, good luck to everybody. And I appreciate the jumping out of the basement window analogy.
Okay. For that. All right. Let's get that out the way. Mayor Walsh, could you kind of let people know a little bit about yourself and background briefly before we get into our main topics of discussion?
Certainly, Jonathan. And it's important to know my background because you just really can't parachute into a mayor's job and have some of the success we've had without a little bit of the background. So I originally, I've been a 32, 33 year East Hartford resident. And I originally got involved in local politics because I had a condominium trash collection issue. I believed we were being double taxed. Embedded in East Hartford's tax bill is refuse collection. Yet as a condominium owner, property owner in town, I also had to pay, I was on their board, I also had to pay a private company to pick up our trash collection. So my call to politics was a single issue, and it was on double taxation of refuse collection for condominium associations. I gathered a lot of people together. And in 1991, I was elected to the East Hartford Town Council. I think I was about 26 years old. That was, a little more than 32 years ago. And I then, stayed involved in local politics, and it was Tim Larson who took me out of the private sector. I was assistant director of financial reporting at the Cigna Insurance Company, and I was there for about a dozen years. Previous to that, I was an auditor at a public accounting firm. So those were a couple of skill sets that served me well, and Mayor Larson brought me on as his finance director. And that's a political appointment, and we'll have some discussions a little bit later in the conversation as we circle around to it. I'll give you the perspective of an employee who's a political appointment as things like the Hartford Democratic Town Committee nomination unfolds, because it's really a destabilizing time for employees in Town Hall, especially those that have been appointed. Strong mayor form of government has its benefits, but that's one of the things that, again, we can unpack a little bit later. But 23 years, I was the finance director. And then I got a call to join the governor's budget office, the Office of Policy and Management. And I did things like pensions. I did things like efficiency in state government. We came up with almost $1 billion of long-term savings. Additionally, COVID came about. Unfortunately, we saw a lot of people who passed away from the virus. And I had the opportunity to work under the Emergency Operations Center command structure, which obviously comes under the governor. And we were in the Armory for the better part of 2 years. And what I saw was amazing leadership on behalf of the state of Connecticut, from originally getting personal protective equipment out to state employees like correction officials and those that, for the state has as caretakers over 13,000 people in the developmentally disabled section of the state. So we got them personal protective equipment. Then we started standing up beds. The state of Connecticut has about 8,500 hospital beds, but we needed about 19,000 more for recovery, just based on projection. Then it became time to set up vaccination centers, after testing centers. And then the testing centers were all over the city, all over the state of Connecticut. And then we heard in probably about August of 2020 that there would be a vaccination in December. So we set up Rentschler Field right here in East Hartford, the place that I was the finance director for about 25 years, which was very helpful to lock down the contracts with Raytheon, to really understand how the local police and fire would support the state efforts to, really drive hundreds of thousands of people through a mass vaccination center. And then I decided in early 2021 to run for the office of mayor. I thought I had some skill sets as the finance director and also what I saw at the state. And here I am today.
Well, Mayor Walsh, first of all, when people hear of East Hartford, the history of this town, most people might come to acceptance that East Hartford is about Pratt & Whitney, one of the largest manufacturing base in the state of Connecticut, very large throughout the country, and other operations. People might think of car dealerships. Coca-Cola has a headquarters or some type of operation out there. Recently, Rentschler Field. But there seems to be a decision to do a lot of new development and put kind of East Hartford in a different direction. First of all, is there any current development projects that's currently taking place in East Hartford that's part of the development that is going to be planned for the future?
So let me back up a second. Jonathan, you have absolutely done your homework. Really good synopsis of East Hartford. I'll take even back very quickly. Turn of the century, we were a farming community. We raised tobacco predominantly, among other things. And kind of a trivial pursuit question, East Hartford tobacco was for many, many years shipped to Cuba and was the outer wrapper for the famous Cuban cigars. So that's kind of a cool thing to note. But then, as you mentioned, a little more than probably 80 years ago, Pratt & Whitney moved from Hartford to East Hartford. Frederick Rentschler, that's what it's named after. He was the lead, we'll call it engineer or a brainchild behind, the WASP engine. And East Hartford has become a heritage community because of the efforts of Pratt & Whitney in World War II. Along the way, they broke out into military engines and commercial jet engines, and they are known worldwide for, their ability to manufacture jet engines. So that being said, let me give you a perspective as to why we're moving away from Pratt & Whitney, at least as a staple of our economy. In their heyday, and I'll call that late 80s, early 90s, Pratt & Whitney employed 26,000 people right here in East Hartford, 3 shifts. And to give you an idea, our budget in 1992 was $80 million. And Pratt & Whitney paid basically $20 million out of that $80 million budget. So $1 in $4 that East Hartford spent for its community, education included, came from Pratt & Whitney. Now, along the time frame over that 30 years, they now pay about $4.5 million of a $210 million budget. So while they're still our biggest employer, while they're still our biggest taxpayer, they have certainly come down from where they were 30 years ago. They employ about 6,000 here in East Hartford, and about 80% of those post-COVID are working at home. It's predominantly engineering employees. So East Hartford has taken a body blow as, I'll call it, Pratt & Whitney has gotten more globalized, if you will. 26,000 down to 6,000, mom and pop restaurants, grocery stores, and so forth, places where you buy gas or cigarettes or candy bar, used to enjoy 26,000 daily people. Now 6,000, and 80% of those are at home. And you could see our revenue stream used to be $1 in every $4. Now it's considerably less. And that tax burden for the same services that we were providing 30 years ago has really come on to the shoulders of our East Hartford residents. So that being said, you need to know that background, why we are moving away from Pratt & Whitney, because we need to replace the, tax monies that they used to pay us with new tax monies. So let me also go into a little bit of a story. You know my history in terms of being a former finance director, went to the state of Connecticut. So I came here a little more than 2 years ago, and 3 important things happened. And, I would ascribe this to any mayor around the state of Connecticut as something that they should do. You no longer can do one project every 2 to 3 years. The government just doesn't, it needs to be more nimble. It doesn't have enough time to wait. So how we did that in East Hartford is we did 3 things. We first came up with a control tower. And that's a fancy word for just a strategic plan. And anybody can go on to the website and type in East Hartford Control Tower, or whether that's Safari or Google, and you'll come up to a 20-page pictorial document. The first 8 projects are development. The second 7 are infrastructure. And the last 5 are programs that we're instituting for our residents. So again, one document, one place. No matter the audience, it could be the governor who's looking to do state bonding money. It could be the residents. What are you doing, Mike? What are your priorities? And you can show them. You could send that out in a document. A newspaper reporter calls me. Hey, what about Silver Lane? You take a snapshot of our number 1 priority, which is the Silver Lane Plaza. You send it out. That reporter has instant knowledge of what you're trying to do. So number 1, we came up with a control tower. Number 2, in order to focus on those 20 projects, we separated operations from projects. We have 500 capable town employees. There's another 1,300 outside. And they don't need the mayor in their business. They just need to be able to be trusted and do it. So we have an employee-centric organization, and we let the people who know how to plow the roads, how to fill the potholes, how to cut the grass, we let them do their jobs. That allows the supervisors and the directors to focus on what the residents have told me that are important. Those 8 development projects, 7 infrastructure projects, 5 program projects. And the last thing was we reorganized town hall. Political campaigns are turmoil for the town hall employees. And we could talk about that in a little bit more detail. But as a 23-year employee of the town of East Hartford, I went through 3 different administrations as a political employee, and I kept my job in each one of them. But at the ready, I had my resume, and I had calls out, and I could have jumped ship at any point in time. 30 or 40 years ago, I think you signal to the community if you were trying to get elected that you would change over the administration, because generally the view was if you are a change agent, you must have new leaders. Well, there's such a such a void of capable public employees, in part because it's a new generation post-COVID, but also the educational requirements and the experience required for these types of jobs are few and far between. So I think anytime a mayoral candidate of any community signifies that they're going to empty town hall, that is just destabilizing, and a lot of time is wasted, because from now until November, you'll have people, looking for new jobs, not getting a heck of a lot done. So that's a call from a playbook of a different century that really doesn't work anymore. So that being said, back to the development. The three things alone that we're working on Silver Lane Corridor, and then I'll stop, is first, Silver Lane Plaza, 30-year blighted property bought by an out-of-state owner, had no plans to invest in it, thought he was going to make a quick buck when the casino was looking at East Hartford. That never materialized. So we took the unusual step of eminent domain, because the residents asked us to do that. And in a 9 vote of our council, after being referred to the council from a redevelopment agency, we used state bonding money of $4.5 million and secured that plaza. We're currently in the process of helping the tenants out to relocate. A lot of nice tenants over there, but they haven't been paying market rent for decades. And some of their businesses, will struggle because it's a different world out there compared to the one they were living in at Silver Lane Park. Our signature project is Rentschler Field Logistics Center. That's 280 acres that was bought by a company called National Development. They're north of $120 million. There's two enormous warehouses, 1.25 million square feet each. One has been rented to Lowe's as their regional hub for distribution, and the other has been rented to, or leased to, Wayfair also as their regional hub. Just to give you an idea of the massiveness of these, one football field doesn't get it done. It's actually 7 football fields end to end, 700 yards long per building. And to give you an idea, the floors of each building were laid in 12 different pours, concrete pours. So each building had 12 pours. Each pour was 90 loads of concrete. So you have over 1,000 loads of concrete in each building. So that being said, National Development will rival Pratt & Whitney as far as our largest taxpayer, and they will add 1,000 new jobs. And then finally, Concourse Park. I have other projects, but I'll stop there because those are the 3 core on Silver Lane. Concourse Park is an amenity-rich. When I say amenity-rich, there's a pool, there's a dog park, there's an exercise facility, there's hoteling facilities on each floor. This is a 300 to 400, 8 building complex that will have market rate, amenity-rich housing. Now, when you take a look at all 3, you need all 3 of these. If you did any one, they probably don't complement each other. You do Silver Lane Plaza with the hope of inviting new retail to reestablish in East Hartford. You do the Rentschler Field Logistics Center to bolster our tax revenue and provide local jobs. And then finally, you do Concourse Park because we have, in Connecticut, we have a worker shortage and we need worker affordable housing. So you do all 3 together to fix Silver Lane, which is an economic corridor in East Hartford. So that being said, I've talked a lot. I will turn it back to you, Jonathan and Stan, and we could deep dive into anything else you want to talk about.
Well, Mayor Walsh, when you look at these development projects that is, I guess, on the books and what's going to be developed very shortly, the first label comes as mixed use development, which seems to be the new trend. You want to divide, you want to have businesses where people can shop, work, and play and have a good time. But the development seems like it's kind of spread out in different parts of East Hartford. You didn't mention Founders Plaza project that is expected to take off very soon. I believe you're going to tear down 99 Founders Plaza or something in that area, and then you're going to develop that particular area, and it's going to have good proximity across the Connecticut River to downtown Hartford. But when you label, or if people who are unfamiliar with mixed use development, Is this projects, any of these projects that you're going to be part of developing, is they going to resemble a little bit like Blueback Square, or is it going to be something totally different?
So, yes, partially, but not completely will it resemble Blueback Square. So, Jonathan and Stan, let's take a look at. So, I focused on Silver Lane. Now, let's focus on the riverfront, which for East Hartford is East River Drive. Now, for anybody that's familiar, and Jonathan named it, there's basically 4 large structures there. The first one is River Point Condominiums. That is not part of this development. That's a lovely condominium complex that overlooks the river and the city of Hartford and so forth, right on the Founders Bridge area. Across the street, there's a hotel and what we call 111 Founders Plaza, which is a 20-story office building. That office building hopefully will be part of this development. The new developers are working with the existing owner to find a path for that particular building. Now, remember, let's turn the clock back to 1972. Founders Plaza was the economic promise of East Hartford then. But over 50 years and 9 mayors, including myself, have not gotten really anything material done there. So we have a 50-year-old building in 111 Founders that has some problems. It's the largest, the tallest building that is unsprinklered in the state of Connecticut, so there has to be fire plans and so forth. So again, the developers are in discussion with that building to see what is the path forward, because we know it needs new windows, we know it needs new skin, we know it needs a sprinkler system, so how do we get that done? But moving up, and Jonathan mentioned 99 Founders, that was the old Bank of America building. That is currently under the control of the developers. They should close by the end of July, so they should own that building completely outright. They've been negotiating the sale for about the better part of a year. And the plan is using state money to demolish that building to open the way up for development. As you progress further south up East River Drive, you also run into 300 East River Drive, which used to be the developers control that, and they should have that purchased. They have a purchase and sale agreement, and they should have that transaction completed by the end of the year, or perhaps sooner. Now, we received a $6.5 million bond allocation from the state of Connecticut, and late summer into the fall, the developer will demolish those 2 buildings and probably the parking garage that is jointly connected between 111 and 99. That'll give the developer a blank palette. Now to the question of Blueback Square. So this development will be what we call a live, work, and play, where the Red Thread building used to be on the southern part of the site. And now remember, as a mirror image of Hartford, we've got really nothing on the East Hartford side. On the Hartford side, they've got the Trinity Soccer Stadium, they've got Coltsville, they've got Front Street, they've got the Science Center, they've got Riverfront Recapture, the Promenade there, they've got the hotel and so forth, and the convention center. All of that is cut up with I-91 going by. You don't have that problem on the East Hartford side of the river. So we have a wonderfully developed Hartford side of the river and not too much on the East Hartford side of the river. That's what we want to change. So the developers have gotten together, they've assembled the parcels, and they hope to have 200 to 300 apartments that overlook the river and overlook the city of Hartford as the live component of this live, work, play development. As you progress further north down East River Drive, you will see some retail, some restaurants. You will see probably an entertainment component, and then hopefully an office building or a medical office building to complement it. I will tell you there are 3 enormous problems to solve. You can't build housing anywhere, especially in places like Hartford and East Hartford, without state assistance. The good news is Governor Lamont has $600 million in the budget of all types of housing, low, moderate, and high-end housing, mostly equally split. So we hope to tap some of that money to make it a reality. Have what we call an elevated greenway. It's $42 million connectivity between buildings, and it's basically an elevated greenway that makes the entire area walkable. So now you can do a loop Hartford and East Hartford. You can have restaurants on there that overlook the river, outdoor restaurants when it's appropriate. You can have community functions. You can have car shows. You can have a carnival, whatever the case may be. And then finally, we need structured parking. If you're going to densify Founders Plaza, you cannot have surface parking. It's just too difficult and a waste of space to have 800 to 1,400 parking spots. So you have to go vertical. That's at $30 to $40 to $50,000 a parking spot. So that's going to be the third problem that we have to solve. So subsidies for housing, $42 million for an elevated greenway, and structured parking at 30 to 40 to 50,000 for 800 to 1,400 units. Will it look like will it look like Blueback Square? I don't believe completely, but we're working to move toward that direction. We want people to live there affordably. We want people to play there, again, with a tip of the hat to the entertainment venues and the restaurants. And then we want people to work there. And that has everything to do with either the office building or the medical office building. So an exact replica of Blueback, not exactly, because our per income levels in the town of East Hartford are a little bit lower than West Hartford. But the concept to have some steak and some sizzle along the river is identical to what Blueback was after for West Hartford. So yes.
Mm-hmm. Stan, you have anything you want to ask or address to Mayor Walsh during this segment?
I'm listening. I can, as he's talking, I can see that because I would drive through there twice every day to pick my daughter up from school.
Mm-hmm.
So she was at school right around the corner from the East Hartford Federal Credit Union, and of course I moved up here to work at Pratt & Whitney.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it. It's I'm having flashbacks as he talks.
Stan, my dad was a Pratt & Whitney machinist for 48 years, retiring in 86.
Wow.
So I have a passion and an affinity for the town of East Hartford because it gave us our start. We grew up in Weathersfield. There were 7 of us in an 800 square foot house. And I'm borrowing John Larson's line. Our second bathroom was a pickle jar.
Right.
That's funny. Yeah, Augie and Ray's, and the whole routine of going out for the morning specials. And what do you want? And, but yeah. But I love what you were saying about the destabilization of the workforce.
So Stan and Jonathan, let me throw something in the center of the table, and we can chew on it as we see fit. So you have probably heard, and you intimated early in the program that I am stepping down, and some people go, Walsh, you're crazy. You've got East Hartford moving again, and nothing but good things are likely to come. What are you doing? You're cutting and running, and nothing could be further from the truth. So there's a couple of reasons. I had intimated that 50 years and 9 mayors, including myself, haven't gotten a thing done on Founders Plaza. And it's important to me on behalf of the region, on behalf of the town of East Hartford, and just for personal satisfaction, I'm at a point in my life where I can step away and say, I want to focus my daily efforts not on running a community with a $210 million budget or 51,000 people. I want to focus on this development that, as I explained, getting the state to commit to funding for 200 to 300 pieces of housing, extremely important. I think I have created the relationships and the trust factor over 40 years of doing this, both with the elected officials here in East Hartford and the elected officials at the state. Number 2, $42 million for an elevated greenway. That, to give you an idea, would double the bonding of the town of East Hartford. We are an extremely frugal community, and that would send shudders down our elected officials' spines. So I want to be there to be sure the math works, to be sure I can console them that this is a good decision to make when we finally get the math together. And then finally, structured parking. There's no way East Hartford, a distressed community, can do that on its own. So we have to look to the state for assistance. So everybody agrees that Founders Plaza densification should have happened decades ago. Back to my term inevitable. Founders Plaza densification is inevitable. Let's accelerate it. Our time is now. Let's get it done. That's the reason why I stepped away. And what we can talk about is servant leadership. I'm trying to check off a few different boxes. And one of the things that I was just uncomfortable with for, the 23 years I was here, every time an administration changed, your neck was in the guillotine, especially as an elected official, not an elected, appointed official from an elected official. Completely destabilizing. And if you're typing up your resume, you're not getting the work done for East Hartford. So by stepping away, rather than have 5 to 15 people vying for the job of mayor in 2 years, in January of 2025, all heck would break loose when they knew I wasn't running again, because I had promised 1, perhaps 2 terms. And I was in the middle of the term when I really sat down and I said, Founders needs the attention. Let's try that. But also, there's a little bit of me that is pleased that we took the turmoil and we removed it from January of 25 to November of 25. So that 11 months worth of turmoil. Along the way, there would have been a single Republican opponent who had time to door knock, time to raise money. There would have been 5 to 15 Democratic opponents. They would have fractured the party. And instead, let's reduce that to a 17-day window from July 3rd to the nominating convention, which East Hartford had on July 20th. And let's unite behind one individual, because there's just too much important work that needs to be done. And this was an effort for me to do something that I'd like to do, help on founders, while at the same time demonstrate that servant leadership's about putting the organization first. And I believe East Hartford, in the long run, will be better served by me stepping aside than it would have doing another term with an uncertain outcome in 2 years.
Well, actually, that was going to be my next question. You kind of beat me to it. I was going to ask you, why are you stepping down, and what your plans would be when you do step down? What type of involvement would you have on these projects? So you kind of already answered that question and kind of beat me to it. And it seemed like there's a lot of significance and a lot of, I would say, not so much pressure, but I would say you would look at this as a tremendous challenge. I mean, it seems like to me something is going to happen. Will everything happen the way you exactly want? I could say that might be your biggest challenge, because things develop. You want this major development projects. Will it develop on time? Will it come to the full scale that is being planned for? So there's so much on the line, but it definitely seems like some developments on a large scale from what you just mentioned is going to actually happen. And I think that's a tremendous plus for you. But what, again, will be your day-to-day or week-to-week functions when you step down as mayor towards involvement with these development or projects?
So I will turn 60 years old on September 10th. And not calling this a retirement, Stan and Jonathan. I am not taking a paycheck from the developer. I am not taking a paycheck from the state of Connecticut. I am not taking a paycheck from the town of East Hartford. This is me stepping aside and now, trying to create the connective tissue to be sure that Founders Plaza is first and foremost in everybody's mind. So day to day, my passion is really to consult for municipalities, take a penny on Founders Plaza, but I'll probably end up connecting with somebody to troubleshoot, just like I did, as finance director with the town of East Hartford, as undersecretary for the Office of Policy and Management. My wife and I, we're 2-income families. Our children are out of the nest. So we are looking for things to engage us, to challenge us, and this is a bit of a flight of fancy for me. So I will probably take some type of employment consulting for municipalities. But on Founders Plaza, I will just continue to haunt the people, both locally and on a state level, in a good, positive way, to make sure they understand that one of the things, Jonathan and Stan, that I walk away from government is it's a phenomenon. It doesn't happen in the private sector, because I work there as well. It happens only in government. If you come up with an obstacle, you don't try to overcome it or solve it. You stop there and you wait for your supervisor to say, why did that stop? And how can we get it moving again? Now, when you have an abundance of 20 projects going on, government has a way of stopping nearly all of them. Maybe they don't have funding. Maybe it's government regulation. Maybe, unfortunately, you have an unmotivated employee. So the mayor, in my case, I walk around with my 20 project document or make phone calls and simply say, where's the problem here? How can I help? Do you need to talk to the finance director to make sure you have funding? So I would do the same thing. I have seen project after project after project fail due to inattention or fail due to lack of problem solving ability. Some problems are just not solvable. But once the math works, Founders Plaza should densify. So it's inevitable. Let's accelerate it. Let's do it now. This was my path to do it in a way that I can enjoy, again, seeing some of this come to fruition. And if it doesn't work, I'll know sooner rather than later.
Well, Mayor Walsh, East Hartford is kind of a little bit of a different place to really sometimes figure out. I don't personally know if Rensselaer Field was really designed to go to East Hartford. I thought that was part of Adrian Landon, and that was supposed to be downtown. So all of a sudden, East Hartford is selected as the location for a football stadium, and basically the other development projects that were supposed to be around Rensselaer Field never have seen to come to be. It was always talk about we're going to do this or this could happen, and then nothing really has ever come out of it. I was always under the impression that stadiums can somewhat be like a magnet to other businesses, that once you get a stadium in place, it usually gives you a good leverage for them towards attracting other businesses. But up until this point, how come Rensselaer Field hasn't really been able to attract other developments and other businesses up until now, what's being planned to this particular point?
Question, Jonathan. And, going back to the Patriots coming to downtown Hartford, great idea, but, where they were going to shoehorn the stadium and so forth, that then kind of, Robert Kraft then walked away with John Rowland at the table. And the next best thing was a UConn stadium. And we knew getting out to stores just didn't have the infrastructure. So Pratt & Whitney, United Technologies at the time, stepped up and said, here's 90 acres. Lou Perkins, rest his soul, he just passed away within the last week. He was instrumental in getting us to the football table, so to speak. Our teams have been, UConn have been a little bit of a patchwork of some successes, but mostly not. And what we found is that the UConn Stadium is not a draw. People do not to East Hartford to patronize the businesses and to tailgate. They may tailgate, but they're tailgating on a through the Adrian's Landing development or enabling legislation. That 90 acres is owned by the state of Connecticut and managed by the Office of Policy and Management. Our police officers are responsible for traffic on the outside, while the state police are responsible for the conduct on the inside. But the goal after every game is to open up the gates and to get everybody out of the stadium as fast as possible. And they just drive past the businesses in East Hartford onto the highway, and then they go back home. So we are hoping for much bigger success for UConn, especially under the new football coach. But it has not been a positive, business-laden experience for the town of East Hartford. So what I can tell you is on the 280 acres where the Lowe's and the Wayfair businesses are going, again, jobs, vital tax revenue. And here's the thing about them. They will be open for business and occupied, provided the construction season continues to make progress, April 1st, 2024. So we've had a series of stops and starts at Rensselaer Field, but they are 60% complete. And that means, again, 1,000 truckloads of cement times 2, tons and tons of steel that's already erected. And we're looking forward to, again, those jobs being created and that tax revenue coming in at certificate of occupancy on April 1st. So Rensselaer Field Logistics Center is a reality. It's under construction. It's 60% done. And some of the other ones, Silver Lane Plaza is owned by the town. Concourse Park, we got to get a shovel in the ground by September 30th. That's concerning because it's a difficult market out there to borrow 110 million to put those apartments there. And some of our residents go, why are you building apartments, Mayor? That's crazy. Well, again, you need to raise the per capita income of East Hartford. You do that by putting in housing, and we also have a worker shortage. They have to live somewhere affordably. So housing, apartments is the next step forward for East Hartford.
Stan, again, I mean, you're running for mayor here in Hartford, and we have the mayor for East Hartford. Would you look at the success or the potential success for East Hartford as beneficial to Hartford, or it really doesn't matter in your opinion? That's just my question, asking you. If you
that's an interesting question. The success of the region is important to everybody. Mm-hmm. So, rising tide lifts all ships. I don't think it's good for, municipalities to look at each other as competition, but rather how do we work together to build, synergy and forward momentum. What they want to do in East Hartford is critically important to the region.
All right.
So
I'll take that up and I'll run a little bit with it in a different direction. So having been the finance director for 23 years, a couple of years at the state, I just believe the state of Connecticut is too small of a state for 169 municipalities. There are things that we should do, especially now that hiring people with the skills needed for municipal government is difficult. I would like to see 169 towns compressed to maybe 10 or 12. I think we have far too many redundancies. Let's start with public safety dispatch. County in Texas can dispatch for a community the size of the state of Connecticut, but yet we've got dozens upon dozens of dispatch facilities for public safety around the state. Again, I'm trying to put a single person out of a job. These are jobs that can't be filled. But police, fire, plow operators, why stop at town lines? What is crazy to me is there are 169 towns and there are 314 fire chiefs in the state of Connecticut. That's simply madness. Yet when I called that out, I had a neighboring community's chief in to tell me that while it was inefficient, it was a good way of government. And I just don't believe that. It's just 314 fire chiefs for 169 communities when maybe we need 10 is really inefficient. And I think parochialism on a local level and Yankee stubbornness is going to be obstacles to getting Connecticut right-sized. But people are exiting the state because of high taxes, and our structure of government promotes high taxes. So it's not the elected officials I blame. It's the citizens who refuse to give up or change the way service delivery is. And it may become necessary in the next decade, as you're not going to be able to find these people to take these jobs.
Well, I like your one word. I think it applies most here. Inevitability. It is inevitable. Cause the 169 towns are not sustainable, Jonathan. We've had this conversation for a long time. I think it's inevitable that there is regionalism. It's just you can't. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I agree.
It's totally unsustainable. So it's going to come down to what those 12 towns are, and Connecticut is barely bigger than Philadelphia.
Right.
But excuse me. But here's the key, though, Mayor Walsh. You are in favor. It sounds like a regionalism. Now, if East Hartford, you kind of borders Glastonbury, South Windsor, or Manchester. The river kind of blocks you off from Hartford, but technically you would also border Hartford if you didn't have that river there. Are you saying you wouldn't have a problem giving up authority and making East Hartford another town, or is there something more when you're saying that we need to sort of regionalize and become one municipal government?
So the answer is yes. I am all about divesting of power when it's in the public interest and when it's for good government. Good government is a nice blanket that you can lay over the baby. Good government means, skilled professionals. Good government means continuity between elections. Good government between, amounts to servant leadership. So good government is a lot of things in my head. But the answer is yes, and I'll tell you a story. It's a disappointing story, and I'll try not to name names. But I had a risk manager, and this risk manager was extremely talented, and he was from one of those communities. Wasn't from East Hartford, but one of those border communities. And he needed, about $20,000 more. He came from the private sector, and he just had so much work capacity. So I approached the town that he lived in, which bordered East Hartford, and I said, let's show how your community and my community can work together and share a risk manager. And they place insurances, they investigate accidents, they do workers' compensation. So they're an important financial component of protecting each community. And of the 169 communities, there might be 50 risk managers in the state of Connecticut. Some towns just look at risk management and say, oh, the HR director will do it, or the mayor will do it, or the first selectman will do it, which is a terrible way to approach it. So these are professional people, certified risk managers, and they're well paid, but they can save 10, 20, 100 times their salary with what we call risk mitigation techniques. So I went to that community and I said, hey, I'd like to split the salary. This is a win-win for both communities. I get to save, 40 grand. You get a risk manager. He'll pay, he will pay, or she will pay, for themselves time and time again. And he went, East Hartford is just too urban of a community. We are a rural community. And I go, what does that have to do with it? And he left that lunch as if his hair was on fire. It was the mayor of a surrounding community. So again, I cite parochialism in the stubbornness of Yankee ways. That was a perfect solution to give a community what they needed to save money, to make the work environment safer for the employees, the residents, and be a shining example of regionalism without taking away a single person's job, in essence, saving a person's job. And we got a flat no, I won't be partners with you. I felt like the redheaded stepchild. And that employee ultimately left for a better paying job in the private sector. So East Hartford lost, the other community lost, and we've subsequently replaced our risk manager, but we no longer look at that community as a possible partner. But I would love to do a public safety dispatch with the city of Hartford. That would be easy. They've got a big one, we've got a big one, and that would be something that we could coordinate on.
Mm-hmm. The thing that you, or not thing, but what you're talking about with servant leadership, and as you were diving into that, it struck me that this is like, it's almost a great opportunity to do like a documentary or a white paper on how to be effective in electoral leadership, and what I don't want to say like a return to the old ways, but a return to, or embracing the idealistic, embracing, I guess, somewhat idealistic for some people, but to show folks that is the premise upon which the system is designed. Mm-hmm. And until you get servants back into what everyone calls the political system, the system doesn't have a real chance to succeed or go forward for the good of the whole, which is, of course, the constituents. Mm-hmm. And so if you have people working together, because you were talking about people giving up their authority, well, that's half the problem. It's not about the authority of the individual that's in the office. It's about how do we serve our constituents. And 169 towns, it's just not sustainable. And you're seeing that with the exodus of people leaving out of the state of Connecticut. It'll collapse eventually.
Yeah, well, let me just clarify. When I say give up authority, I didn't really get into depth of what even Attorney Mark Corber was talking about. When I say give up authority, you have a town who feels like their police department, their fire department, their school system, they are involved. They have a sense of control all of a sudden now you want to regionalize and separate East Hartford or West Hartford or the other surrounding towns. Usually the idea is make it one Hartford. Now the perception is, do you really want to put your trust in the police department, the school system in Hartford, comparable to what you already have?
It's not necessarily going to be Hartford. It's the region. It's not like you regionalize and one town suddenly becomes the voice for everybody. Everyone now weighs in.
Okay.
So if you regionalize the area, the one that would most likely get hit would be Hartford in terms of not having as big a voice. No one's going to have as big a voice as they once had when you consider that the town is not like making decisions here, but it benefits everyone. Everyone benefits from this. And if they could get over the fear, then they would realize that. And so there needs to be some sort of an example close to home of it working. And, Mayor Mike strikes me as the closest opportunity right now to kind of like document what he's doing with the theories and the practical application of it that you see, where he's stepping down for the greater good of the whole. Because if he doesn't, what he sees as a path forward for East Hartford, particularly along that development region, won't happen. It needs someone to make a sacrifice. No one's willing to make the sacrifice for the greater good.
All right.
And eventually, it's going to be our undoing.
Well, Mayor Walsh, you can respond back to that if you would like, or if you have something else you want to add to it.
No, Stan, spot on. We really have to. I think, just before we went on the air, we talked about, in my definition, the difference between an elected official and a politician. I think, at least, again, these are my words, so I don't want to jam anybody up. A politician is not a savory word. It's almost a derogatory comment. If you say, if at least I receive it as a derogatory comment, oh, you're a politician, that means you're going to change your opinion wherever you are. You're going to try to personal gain. That's what a politician is. In my book, it has a derogatory term. An elected official has more of a public servant connotation to it, a servant leadership connotation. Yet they're descriptive terms for the same individual. I would really hope that people who get involved in local politics, because it's necessary. Democracy is the best form of government, we found, although on a national level they've taken it to the theater of the absurd. But I'll leave that out of it. On a local level, there aren't too many hot button issues. It's about plowing the roads. It's about filling the potholes. It's about cutting the grass. And there's efficient and economical ways to do that. The equipment is prohibitively expensive. When I took office as finance director, when I took the position as finance director, a fire engine was $350,000. Now they're upwards of $800,000. When I took office 30 years ago as finance director, a ladder truck was $800,000. Now a ladder truck can approach $2 million. So we're not going to have the luxury, again, inevitable. Somewhere down the road, it's going to be inevitable. Not every community is going to be able to afford ladder trucks or engines, or the exodus of out of Connecticut will continue. We really have to realign government, and we keep electing people and they keep doing the same things. And in my view, that's the definition of insanity. But the courage to do something differently, I've come to the conclusion you unfortunately can't do it with a carrot. The state of Connecticut incentivizes. If you regionalize, we'll give you, $10,000. What they need to do is they're going to say your municipal aid, if you don't regionalize, we're going to cut 10% of your municipal aid every year until you get to this regionalization total. And you know what? That's the state government putting in not a carrot but a stick but allowing local officials to do what they can to partner with surrounding communities, because it's all about collaboration, it's all about partners, and it's all about, in my view, elevating the employees to let them do their jobs, and then let the officials take a step back and just make sure everybody's adequately.
Well, one thing it sounds like, Mayor Walsh, is that East Hartford, you are preparing yourself to make the transition from a manufacturing town to other different types of businesses. And
Yes.
I think sometimes people get stuck on one way of operating. Well, we have Pratt and Whitney. Let's try to continue to hope that more manufacturing jobs become available. We can bring in more manufacturing. Although I thought I heard at one time that Pratt and Whitney was adding more jobs. I forgot the numbers, but certainly you always want to be able to make a transition to other areas that seems to be growing more than one particular area. And it sounds like to me you're not giving up on Pratt and Whitney. You're just making some adjustments in a different area of economic development.
Yeah, they are still absolutely important to us. 6,000 people that work there, again, a lot of them at home. Engineering, there's 170 patents or more that come out of Pratt and Whitney annually. To kind of summarize, we designed a new logo here in East Hartford, and EH is in gold. Those are the colors of our Hornets, black and gold. So if you can picture a capital EH, the E over the H, that's the historic East Hartford signature. Embedded in it is getting things done differently. So you could see the East Hartford in gold, and then it's G with the capital gold E, getting things. The H is the second letter in the things. So it says East Hartford, getting things done by doing them differently. And to your point, Stan, to your point, Jonathan, my job was to recover, take office, recover from COVID. We passed out $4 million of American Rescue Plan Act money to 100 local businesses with an emphasis on minority-owned, veteran-owned, and women-owned businesses. So that should give us a jump start. I then was charged with resetting Town Hall and those important relationships that had languished through COVID. To give you an idea, we had 24 grievances prior to the time I got here. Last year we had 4, because we sit down around a table and we go, what's the problem? How can we solve it? Those 4 were just an indication that some things aren't solvable. And then the ultimate goal was to hand off. And it was always evident I was going to hand off in no more than 4 years. I simply chose to do it in 2 because Founders Plaza dropped in our lap. And that's exceedingly important for both East Hartford and the region. So love being on the show. Happy to chat with you. And hopefully I get an invitation back when we got Founders Plaza rocking and rolling. And I can tell you more about what vendors are going to go there.
Well, that sounds like a good way to end this show, and I think it would be good to come back, obviously, when you start to see the development and the construction actually taking place, and then, we have a lot more and something different to actually talk about, but this was definitely a good first start and a good introduction to have you on, and I really appreciate your availability under somewhat of a short notice. If there's any last words that you would like to leave the audience, feel free to do so.
Yeah, I want to put a pitch in for what we call East Hartford Works, capital E, capital H, Works, and then an asterisk after it, for effect. East Hartford Works is a program. It has evolved over time, so it's not exactly a new program. But our focus is on taking our children, East Hartford residents, whether they're a junior or a senior in high school, and putting them through the paces to be police officers, firefighters, or public works laborers. We'll help them get their CDL if they're a public works laborer. We'll help them get their paramedic certification if they're a firefighter, and we'll ultimately send them at the appropriate time through the academy if they want to be police officers. But we put in our first class called FRIA, First Responders Youth Academy, was held at a school here in East Hartford last year. We had 24 juniors and seniors who had no idea that they could be police officers, firefighters, or public works employees in their community. That gave them a path that they didn't have before. So in addition to development, in addition to taking care of infrastructure, you have to create programs that are beneficial for the community. And East Hartford Works, targeting our young folks for jobs that are plentiful but scarce to find candidates, is a way, if we can't find them, we will create them or make them ourselves. And that's when you start to turn a town into a community, when our own children are working as police officers, firefighters, and public works employees. So I will end that on a high note with a plug for East Hartford Works.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. It's a pleasure to meet you on the air. And Godspeed and continued success.
And you as well. Good luck in the primary.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Take care, Mike. Okay.
So long.
Okay.
All right. Great interview.
Yes. I mean, he kind of took the lead and, kind of sent the show in the direction. I mean, I kind of was on the same page with him. I didn't know for sure. We kind of had discussed what we were going to be talking about. And I was thinking about this type of topic on and off over the past few months. So instead of just speculating, I think you was the one that mentioned, a few months ago when I was talking about some potential developments in East Hartford that, you need to get the mayor on. And
I do now that you mentioned that, I do remember that conversation. Yeah. Why speculate when you ask the person?
Exactly.
So just ask. He'll come.
He come, and he definitely accepted the invitation. I mean, East Hartford's a kind of town that's a little. I stated a little confusion to figure out. I mean, is it a wealthy town? Is it a struggling town? It has like a little bit of both. It has some nice areas, some well-development areas, some
like
areas
Hartford.
that's a. I didn't really get a chance to ask him that on the show. What type of town do he think East Hartford resembles? Now, he did mention he doesn't believe the development is going to look exactly like Blueback Square, but they're definitely aiming for a lot of developments that is going to be what you call a live, work, and play model. But to duplicate Blueback Square, that's a tremendous high goal.
I think it needs to be what it needs to be, and it will be that, and then people can compare the next project to theirs. I think people like comparisons, but I don't know. Sometimes I call them, external comparison traps don't always work well because it sets false expectations and sets the tone for potential grave disappointment too. But I think that projects they carry their own stand on their own merit. Yeah, but great interview. Great interview. Why don't we take a short break? Then we will be back and we'll pick it up after the break. Stick and stay, my friends. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Hey, Hartford, Connecticut. I'm talking to you. We got to get out and vote. Vote for Stan McCauley. It's our time. We got to rise up and take it back. Vote for Stan McCauley.
Vote for Stan. You got to vote for Stan McCauley. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan.
It's more to politics than just what your social covers. And it ain't somewhere written down in bold letters. Don't just take my word for it, do your research. Think of your future, look at your bigger picture. Suit and tie, clean up, unity for the righteous. Plotting on action, hands on access. With a light source vision, door to door knocking. Guerrilla style marketing, brainstorm as a collective. Real neighborhood suggestions. Only we know what it is where we living. To make real life decisions. Move on facts, make it manifest back.
You gotta vote for Stan McCauley. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan. Vote for Stan. Oh yeah. Look at your city. Stop. Take a look around. Is opportunity flow into your house? Are you working? Wait, can you say
every night.
My name is Marlon E. Starler Sr. Many of you may know me as the two-time welterweight champion of the world. I'm here to tell you that Democrat J. Stan McCauley, as our next mayor, will fight for you until the last bell. Help me throw a knockout punch. Go out and vote for Stan the man.
My name is J. Stan McCauley, and I approve this message.
Jay Hogarth in the background. Raise your spirit consciousness. You can listen to this is like ear candy here. You can listen to this for like forever. Yeah, Jay Hogarth. You can get this CD online. This is just great, a lot of our guests, they all comment on, the greatness of this CD. But you could go to jayhogarth.com, jayhogarth.com, jayhoggard.com. And order your copy right there. You have a copy of this, right?
I don't have a copy.
You don't have a copy?
No.
I didn't give you one?
You didn't give me one.
This must be yours.
All right, thank you. A nice CD.
I thought I gave you one.
No.
Oh, no?
I'm thinking of somebody else.
No. It was only you.
Okay.
It was one for you, one for Cacique.
All right.
And one for Cleo. That must be why this one is still here, because I was surprised to find it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is yours.
All right. Thank you.
I never gave you one.
No.
I feel bad.
Well, at least you're giving it to me now. That's a nice laid-back CD to listen to.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll make sure you don't leave here without that.
Okay. I see it right there. Well, Stan, obviously we're going to cut the program a little shorter today, so if you don't mind, I kind of want to get right to some things.
Go for it, Jonathan.
It's been a real horrific week in the capital city with violence, senseless incidents, accidents, whatever you want to classify it. And I really sometimes don't like to come across as being negative and taking away from anything that is going positive and unproductive, because sometimes that may be the way I come across. I said last week, I felt it's like the city, you're taking one step forward and two step backwards. You don't see Hartford that way.
No, I don't see it that way.
But I think it's too imbalanced, if that's a better way to describe it.
Things happen, Jonathan. Sometimes horrible things happen. Those are indicative of the particular events, not everything in the city.
No, but that's why I said imbalance is a better terminology to use. It's not that you don't have good things happening. It's just an imbalance, a consistent imbalance.
Consistent imbalance means that the city is tilted in the wrong direction. That means it's not going well. I challenge that notion as well. I think that there are things that need to be better, but the things that I think that we discuss ad nauseum, such as the crime and certain horrific incidents, are going to happen in next month. There's some things, though they be horrible, that are out of our control. And to lament over the things you have no control over, it just sets one up for the path to depression.
Well, I'm hearing the word neglect, and you say it's out of our control. So
it is out of your control.
It's out of your control directly as an individual.
Right. So how do you make a mother or father directly care for their kids? You don't have any control over that. You talk about it and what they need to do, but you don't have any control. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but there's things that I think is, and see, this is where you get into trying to figure out pointing fingers.
We're not pointing fingers.
Well, some people are going to be looking for answers now.
They
Community meetings and violence and all of these type of issues.
We have this discussion, twice a year, if not 3 times? You and I? For the past, 15 years?
We talk about it because, it's a conversation that I'm addressing, and I bring it up more than you bring it up. So you are not the type of person that will avoid any type of conversation. I would have been nice. I called this Gary Bryant radio show last week, and I told him about the upcoming mayoral election. He's thinking Brandon McGee is running for mayor. Now that may not be relevant of a radio.
He doesn't know who's he doesn't know who's he's it's not top of mind for him.
Right. So it's not a priority.
Right.
He feels the city clearly is going in the wrong direction, but again, he doesn't live in the city, so
nor does he know who's running for mayor. So I mean, they're all things considered. I'm not nothing personal, Gary.
But people listen, and again, perception, whether it's always the backbone of what is really a city or what is a town, it does have a tremendous influence.
That is the number one reason why we're here. That is the premise for why we're here. Now, everyone in the world doesn't listen to us.
Right.
But the best we could do is offer people an alternative and give them a perspective. That way, that's all you can do. People listen to who they listen to, and if the people they listen to tell them one thing and not everything else, then that's what they walk away with.
Well, you don't think there's no evidence or no substance that the city is going in the wrong direction? That's a question, like when you say a city is going in the wrong direction.
If I thought the city was going in the right direction, I wouldn't be running for mayor.
Right.
So clearly, I think the city needs to go into a different direction. That's different than saying nothing's going right.
Right.
There's a big difference there.
Well, keep my words intact. When I say, I'm not saying nothing is going right, in balance, meaning many parts of the city could be developed, many activities, people working, being productive citizens, and another part of the city is just being flooded with senseless crimes and boarded up buildings and mothers and parents not even really shouldn't be a parent, but that's a whole nother subject within itself. But neglect, substandard.
So what is your solution for that?
There's no one solution to that.
Well, then what are the top 3 solutions?
Well, you mentioned before that your number one goal is focusing on the youth. I think, again, the whole environment, and I'm not saying that's not what you mean, because you can't separate the youth from, and I said this, and I hate to be right or look like I'm right when you see a parent neglectful. But again, if you're going to focus on the youth,
no, there's 6 priorities.
Right.
Was the 5 points, but there's six priorities. 6 priorities. The priorities focus on the realignment. So it's not like the first goal or the number 1 goal. There, it's everything working together. Like everyone on the airplane's going to arrive at the airport at the same time. They're not all going to get off the plane at the same time.
Right.
Nor did they all get on the plane at the same time. So sort of like that. So youth are very, very important. Point in fact, it's the one thing that's most disturbing about what happened over the weekend. A young child. So, and then you've got all these shootings. There are ways to impact these things. These are executive decisions made by people elected to office. If you want to have real impact on that, then you run for office and make those kinds of changes.
Well, see, here's the thing, and this morning show is a perfect example. Now, I should be able to put an invitation out, and I didn't put an invitation out to Mayor Bronin because I think I kind of know the answer.
Until you ask him, you don't know the answer. Let him tell you no.
Right. Well, I have tried in the past after he became mayor, and then it was like you're being put on a waiting list. I was able to get this Mayor Walsh on within one asking him basically one referral. Just would you want to be on the show?
Mayor,
he wants to come on.
Right, Mayor Bronin does not. That's right. Not deep.
Yeah. Well, you see, I have a problem.
You can have all the problem. I say these things, of course, respectfully.
Right.
You can have all the problem you want. That doesn't change anything. You're just one guy out of 120 in Hartford.
Well, see, when people say, and this is where sometimes you got to be careful. Well, look at what you got. The Democrats control the city. Your cities are in shambles.
That's a Republican diatribe. Gary's going to say that every time. And your friend in Boston.
My friend in Boston, yeah.
Right, family member.
Right. But you don't buy into that argument neither. That look at what you expect. The Democrats are y'all.
Republicans say that all the time. That's and
the only thing you can say is this separates the person. I mean, Mayor Michael Walsh, I believe, is a Democrat.
Yep.
And he sounds like a balanced person. We didn't get into heavy issues of substance and things on that level. It's mostly about economic development. But I think the fact that he was willing to come on very quickly, and if I put the effort out to try to get Mayor Bronin, I don't know if you have anything to do with it. Maybe, he might realize or has this assumption that Stan may put him on the spot.
That could be, I don't.
Okay. He was on the program twice before he came for mayor. But you shouldn't have to be living in a city hoping that your elected officials will do what you would like for them to do or meet you halfway. I'm not saying you shouldn't have that mentality.
In fairness to Mayor Bronin, it's not like he, you, me, and 120,000 other people in the city. All would like things to be a particular way. He's not under any obligation to do what we want.
Right.
He will give you an ear. He will listen to you and consider what you're saying. But, for every person that wants something, I can point to someone who doesn't.
Right.
So that just because you want it, an invitation is an invitation. If he comes, he comes. If not, you move forward. But having said that, let me not make this about him coming here.
Yeah, well, it's much bigger than him. I'll just use that as an example. And the solutions are beyond just your mayor, too. Everybody has to be involved in this process.
That's right. And so these are societal things. There has to be a lot of intentionality around them. There has to be a lot of what our guest earlier talked about, servant leadership. That servant leadership attitude has to come from more people than just the mayor. It needs to come from clergy. It needs to come from mosques and synagogues and churches. It needs to come from bus drivers and bodega owners and nonprofits. People have to start to put and elevate other people and their situations and conditions if you expect that to change. Until that happens, you're going to see the exact same thing happening, because nothing has happened to change the results that we see over and over again. Now, a lot of people, particularly here in Hartford, are very good, if not expert, at identifying those things. But what's the fix? What is the fix?
Well, with some of the fix, there was recently a Hartford mayoral debate, and I think the issues of homelessness, high cost of housing, and other issues were brought up. So, are the people who were at the mayoral debate, did they have some answers? Did they have some solutions that
You're talking about the candidates?
Yes, the candidates. Wasn't a Hartford mayoral candidate forum that you had?
Right, but you said did the people have solutions? I just want to make sure you're asking about the people that were present or the
people
candidates?
No, the people that were present.
The candidates.
No, the people that were in attendance for the candidates.
Did they have solutions?
No. I'm asking, do the people that was asking? I'm not talking about the candidates running for mayor. The people that was at the forum. I didn't hear it. I wasn't there, obviously, but I'm just saying it sounds like to me they seem like they know what should be happening, and I don't know if they made some suggestions of that you can remember, because like I say, I was not there. Did they ask you a question? Did they say this needs to happen, or was it just asking?
There were a lot of things that were brought up in terms of questions. The questions talked a lot about homelessness and issues of, vagrancy and, people. There was a lot of questions about prostitution being out of control. Their lament was that the candidates were not answering the questions. Not so much that they didn't have answers to the questions, they just weren't answering the questions.
Right.
They were avoiding the question with the diatribe you usually hear at candidates' forums. Because they have a narrative that they're trying to put out as opposed to answering the question. The question is not an opportunity for you to spew your narrative. People are asking questions because they want answers.
All right.
But having said that, they gave you 2 minutes to come up with an answer.
It sounds like to me it was a frustrating, not for the candidates, but for the people that
very
were there.
Frustrating for the people that was upset.
Exactly.
You can watch this; it's online.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I was not able to pick it up. I'm usually good
at
that.
Hartford Public Access Television.
Okay, I'm definitely going to watch that and send out a few links. But again, I mean, I have even heard of late Reverend Henry Brown making a statement that, and don't take it the wrong way, but it's almost like he was stating you almost expect someone to get killed or get shot. It's not.
I don't think that is the wrong way.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, human beings resolve conflict by neutralizing the conflict, and that generally, that sometimes can wind up that the conflict is resolved by killing somebody.
Right. And then the fact that innocent people were killed this past week,
that's
on top of people being
once again
killed.
You have reckless individuals trying to resolve the conflicts that they have between one another, and if you are in between them and a bullet or a baseball bat, or you break into somebody's house and strangle them in the night, and you strangled the wrong person, unfortunately innocent people are often caught up in these things,
and it's not going to be swept underneath the rug. You think, because I will make that statement time after time. After a couple of weeks, it may be forgotten. This teenage girl on Buckley High School that was killed. It may be.
It is unfortunate, but something else will happen that will supersede that,
right.
and as people move on in their daily lives, they are dealing with the things that are happening now. Unfortunately, between now and the next 4 weeks, someone else is going to be murdered.
Right.
Because that's how people are resolving conflicts. And we have to change how we communicate with one another. We have to change how people value life. See, there's a lot of unintended consequences from the actions that we do. If we don't value, I'm going to say something very controversial, particularly in the middle of an election. If you don't value the life of an unborn person, why would you value the life of someone that is born?
I've heard Mr. Knight say that same thing. You and Mr. Knight think alike.
So
Exactly.
so these are the unintended consequences. Well, if you have a right to do what you want, then the next person has a right to do what they want. That's how they process stuff. And so you take away the guardrails, you take away the standards, and now anything goes. And if anything goes, anything goes. He looked at me the wrong way, disrespected me in front of my friends. That'd be the last time he does that. I'll show him.
Right.
So next time you see him on the street, folk roll up. That attitude has to change. It's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. It can be done.
Yeah.
But you need a set of community standards to say this is unacceptable.
Well, you see, I was telling you before about even the incident in Unity Plaza. I've noticed a lot of men, particularly hanging out, gambling, loitering, doing nothing. And it sounds like to me, well, I'm being negative on the people and blaming the people that I said. Usually when you get a lot of people with a lot of time on their hand and a lot of other issues happening, at some point something could go wrong.
Well, suppose those guys had a nice place that they could go to that had pillars outside, and they can get, they have their drink in a nice glass with a cube of ice, and smoke in a nice room that has cherry walls, and kill in their spare time playing a round of poker or cards.
Right.
Now, of course, these guys wouldn't be hanging out, wasting time, being degenerates. See, the difference is just where the activity happens in what setting.
Right. Where it's happening at.
Right. Because those guys weren't the ones that committed the crime.
No, one of them was just a victim of the crime, or two of them actually. One of them was killed, and I guess another person was critically wounded.
There's been more than a few people killed in smoke-filled back rooms too.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, again, and I don't have the answer, so it would be wrong for me just to speculate and saying, well, you got homelessness, you got people with no income, you got people with no hope. You got people with a criminal mentality. So what do you expect when you put a large concentration of people?
Right. We expect that there are ways to mitigate these issues if there is a desire to do so. There is no outward desire to change that condition. Therefore, the condition continues.
But then sometime you will say, Stan, the change has to start with the individual too.
Well, all change starts with individuals, Jonathan. You're going to, if you ultimately are trying to create a community condition or a set of conditions that cause that person to choose to do different. People make decisions about what they want to do, what they want out of life. You can give them the options, but it's up to them to make the choice.
But the answer wouldn't be, okay, no longer you can stand in front of a burger and pizza land. No longer people can just stand on.
No loitering.
No. So would that be a recommendation that you think should be looked into, or that's not the real solution?
I don't know whether that'll work or not. It can be tried. That's up to people at Burger Pizza Land and the citizens in the community around there. No loitering.
Right.
Will that impact Burger Pizza Land business negatively? Maybe they think it will.
Well, people got to do something. I mean, if you tell somebody they can't stand there, they're going to go someplace else.
There you go.
So I don't know if that's the best.
I mean,
and the bigger picture is why. What can you find that they would be interested to do that could kind of?
But Jonathan, these are very subjective. These are very subjective things. There's a group of people that meet over by Freddie Wish.
You told me about that before,
right? You are aware of these people.
Well, you mentioned at one time people have cookouts and they socialize in front of Fred. If this is the same,
not in front of, kind of on the side,
on
and
the side.
Back. So depending upon when you go over there and who you go over there with, there's a whole society, a whole group of individuals,
right?
Just hanging, having a good time,
right?
All right. So they aren't bothering nobody,
right?
Now I've heard from other people that say that they are a nuisance. They do bother people. All kinds of stuff is going on, and they need to be kicked out and stopped.
Oh, you've heard two stories.
There's always two stories.
Right.
There's the story of those who are impacted negatively by certain activities, and then there are those who are involved with the activity that see nothing wrong with it. So somewhere along the way, there should be a way for people to come to consensus. But what right do I have to drive by and say what you're doing is wrong and you need to stop? Because I'm offended by it.
Yeah.
And that's what it sounds like you're saying.
Law enforcement can stop some things if people
are breaking the law.
The law, right.
Right.
But I'm not going to say, again, I watch it from a distance. I'll see 20 to 25 guys sometime.
You should walk up to him and ask him, yo, what's up? Let's talk.
And what's that going to accomplish? Just listen. Me going to 20 guys.
It's a start. You can't make assumptions about people without talking to them.
So by me visualizing something, that's not the way to go about it.
What you see isn't always what you may perceive.
Okay. But that perception is, do I want to walk, if I'm a mother with a little child?
Not a mother, Jonathan.
You're saying for me, yeah. Well, this is the area that I grew up in. So I know the history of Unity Plaza. I know when you had solid businesses, black-owned businesses, Blanche's grocery store, a drugstore, a pharmacy.
So what do we do to bring those things back?
I thought Howard Hill was working on that side of the development. But what do you do? I could say advocate a need for a grocery store, a bank. There used to be a bank there. But what weight is that going to really carry?
I would,
I mean, I could say negative. It's an eyesore. But what does that really accomplish? Just saying it's an eyesore.
I think if there's an understanding of what it was, what it is, and how it got from what it was to what it is a good place to start.
Right.
Then when we understand why it is that way, does the capacity exist to recreate the conditions that were once there? What you are seeing is a community in decline.
Right.
And as the community declines, it has less disposable income, less money to be able to be spent. If the community ages out and seniors are on a fixed income and they can't afford to put more money out of their pocket to get the things they need, and the price of things is going up, then they're now forced to move from where they are.
Right.
So they move to a community they can afford to live. It might be a retirement community or an assisted living community. Then people transition from this world to the next because of their age.
Right.
So things are not the way they were 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Times change. People change. New folks move in. So ultimately what needs to happen is that community needs to have more income in it.
Right.
Now, we're going to talk about a community having more income. You talk about gentrification.
Well,
so gentrification is bringing people who have more wealth into the community as disposable income.
Well,
so you want to gentrify the community?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up because somebody told me personally, for me individually, I just need to get a college degree and more doors will open up to me. Income will open up to me. Just so now the ball.
For you?
Yeah, for me.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
Just get a college degree.
Yeah.
Is the solution that the person recommended up to me. Now, if you're saying how income is going to increase for a segment of your neighborhoods, the same what is a building? It don't have to be a college degree. We did discuss you can get a vocational trade or whatever.
You can wrap that up with one word: education. So, if you increase the educational capacity of those in the community, then they have more earning power, and with more earning power, they have more spending power. And as they have discretionary income they can spend, then their merchants are going to want to come and tap into some of that. And so you have store owners come. Now, if you have a supermarket in there and you have shrinkage, people walking out without paying, how long can a guy stay in business?
Yeah, and those things have happened too in the past. So I think what you said is real important. Look at how Unity Plaza used to, because there was some type of article written about Unity Plaza. I didn't realize the place was built in 1973. I thought it was actually a little older than that, if that number is accurate, but let's just say it was built in 1973, and I don't know if the income levels was that high then neither, because you had the housing projects. A lot of that area was not still that wealthy, but maybe the cost of living, cost of doing businesses was a lot less then, so it made it easier.
Well, there were more people with discretionary income then.
But again,
the neighborhood was much more stable.
Much more stable, right.
Right.
Well, I guess it's not an easy task to correct or even prevent sometime,
It's hard to prevent unless you are forward thinking about the long-term development of your community. So it takes dedication, it takes focus, and it takes people in the community to all work together toward a common goal.
Well, one thing I will commend you, Stan, is you don't get distracted or sidetracked as you're running for office for mayor. These incidents don't seem to take you away from your focus, and I think that's real important. Obviously, I know you're concerned. You realize it's a serious problem, but you don't get sidetracked.
Well, there's not an issue of getting sidetracked. These are the kinds of incidents that happen that make you want to be mayor, so that you can try to resolve some of them. But
right.
Being mayor does give you a little bit more presence in terms of executing solutions than not being mayor.
Exactly. Particularly a strong mayor form of government too, because even when you had mayors like Thurman Milne and Kerry Saxon Perry, they really weren't the chief executive officer of a city.
Oh, nice term. Oh, you're good.
All right.
Never underestimate how good you are.
Right.
Yeah. That was good, because I was going to say maybe they're politicians, but you said it in a much more delicate
way. Exactly. But you have a real important meeting again, the Great African American Alliance, scheduled this morning. You have this Hartford Democratic Convention tonight. That's important too. But again, how you could stay focused, Stan, on hostile issues, because one thing, you're not going to just get distracted and say, okay, this got to be done, that got to be done. What do you expect? If you're having any private meetings about, I think they're going to start to address community violence now. Again, another forum or another meeting.
They have them every year.
They have them every year. But that's making the news now. But it's good that you have that focal point to stay focused. I hope this press conference, something good come out of it. I think the money has been embarked, or it's coming from the state towards the North Hartford flooding issues.
Well, we'll see we'll see when the press conference happens. What happens at the press conference?
Exactly.
We'll see. Yeah.
So the convention is tonight, though, 8:00 or whatever time.
The convention is tonight. I really should know the answer to this question. I think it starts at 5.
5. Okay.
5 or 6. I think it's. I don't know what time it starts. I just know I'll be there when it starts.
And we got to get you on the Gary Bryan show. I tried to give you that information. I don't think they're breaking their neck to get any of the mayoral candidates.
Nah, they'll wait until after the primary, probably, or right before the primary. Depends. Maybe they'll wait to see who actually gets on the ballot.
Right.
That would be a good programming decision.
All right. Well, I'll try to bite my tongue and not call the program after the convention tonight.
Oh, don't let me stop you from doing whatever it is you do. I don't micromanage other people's head space. So.
Well, I would rather you call, actually, to be honest. I mean, the whole purpose was to get you as a guest on the show, but like you said, they may.
I know Gary.
Oh, you know Gary well.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know Gary, but I mean, we have talked in the past.
Yeah.
He knows who I am and stuff. If he wants me on, he'll let me know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, let's see how that goes. But again, I wish you the best of luck tonight. And definitely the primary is the bigger goal anyway.
Well, the bigger goal is the primary.
Right.
And, we're dedicated to a win. As far as we're concerned, we've already won the primary. Yeah, so.
It's September the 12th.
September the 12th. Okay. We're just waiting for September the 12th to get here.
All right. So.
The election's on September the 12th. Everything before that is folk popping off at the mouth.
So what's going to take place tonight doesn't have any bearings on the primary. This convention tonight.
It has everything to do with the primary.
It does.
Because it is what causes the primary. Tonight, the delegates, if you will, the committee, the town of Hartford has 6 districts. Those districts have representatives, which make up the Democratic town committees. All right, so you have the 6th district. You have the 1st, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th, and the 7th districts. Each of those districts have a certain number of individuals that have been elected to represent the members of the party in those districts.
Right.
Their job is to find people who can run to represent the electorate. They will come together tonight to select the people they believe are best suited to take the party forward and that will best represent the people who they've been elected to serve. It takes approximately 41 votes to have a majority.
Okay.
It might be a little less, but maybe 40, 39. But it's all so everybody just basically says 41. If you have 41 votes, then you receive the endorsement from the town committee. And that endorsement then makes you the selected individual for nomination.
Okay.
All right. For mayor, city council, treasurer, probate court judge, or whoever else is running. Now, someone will say, hey, I don't think that person is the best person at all. I challenge the wisdom of the town committee. I challenge the wisdom of the town committee in that selection. So they'll say, okay, fine. Go out, get 5% of the votes, 5% of the party membership, and we'll put you on the ballot, and then we'll have a primary and let the general membership choose.
Right.
That will happen.
5%, you said.
You need 5%. It's about 1,800 votes. On the safe side, about 3,000, 2,500, 3,000 signatures. Not votes. Signatures that you need to put your name on the ballot. You're petitioning your way onto the ballot.
For the primary.
For the primary.
Okay, so that's...
And that is something we've never done before.
Right. So like you say, a lot is at stake. This is very significant to some degree, the Democratic convention.
Well, the convention is significant because you don't know whether or not you're going to get the nomination. I mean, people kind of know, but anything can happen.
Right.
Anything can happen. So there are a lot of people who want to be on that want the endorsement of the town committee so they could be nominated from the floor, at the event. And then there will be those who don't get nominated that will have to go out and knock on doors and get signatures of people so they can get on the ballot.
And Chairman Mark DeVella, he has a lot of influence on
the chairman is supposed to have a lot of influence. That's why he's the chair, or she is the chair. In my never to be humble opinion, if the chair cannot rally a individual, then they shouldn't be the chair. By virtue of the fact that they're the chair, they should have enough gravitas to rally the delegates to a place of consensus. That's the primary job of the chair.
And he has, let's say, political, and people say the Bellas has tremendous political influence.
They do.
They do.
Right. That's neither good nor bad. It just is. You can complain about it all you want. What are you going to do about it?
Right. To do that.
Right. Such is life. If it wasn't them, it would be someone else.
Well, their name have been mentioned of late, even with the MDC issue. I mean, you can't separate the two in some areas. The chairman of the...
You can separate the two, though they may be conflated from time to time. They're two different things. But.
Well, it's going to be interesting though. At the very least, it should be very interesting. And again, like I said, I may call Gary Bryant later on this week. Hopefully, you'll call him at some point.
I'm not calling him.
You're not gonna,
to me, it's inappropriate to call into a radio show to put yourself into the guest chair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, just as a candidate running,
those are invites.
Invites.
He'll if he thinks I'm important enough for his audience to hear, he'll invite me.
Okay.
And then we'll go on. But then,
right. Well, let's see how things go tonight first.
As a general rule, anytime you insert yourself into a conversation, there's a big potential that you could look bad.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
it's better he call you and say you call.
Right. No, I mean you even if he calls you, anytime you open your mouth, you can say the wrong thing.
Right.
Every time you speak could be the opportunity to end.
Yeah.
What you think is a career.
And I think, to be honest, and although I don't know if he really knows you that well. I'm pretty sure he's heard of you, but I don't know if he knows you like the late Brad Davis knew you, or Dan Olavallo knew you.
I knew Dan the best.
Right.
Then Brad. But I've spoken to Gary before. He's interviewed me.
Oh, okay.
Before. Yeah.
Okay, so I was not even aware.
But then he interviews lots of people every day, so he may not remember me. Yeah.
Well, he said some pretty negative things about the city of Hartford. I got to be honest with you, Stan. He said some real negative things, and even I'm pretty sure if we'd have had a longer conversation, he would have had even said more than what he said.
Well, I mean, I'd love to have a conversation with him about Hartford.
Yeah.
Hartford is not as negative as he may think it is, but they're understanding the reason why.
That's more important.
Is very, very important. The why.
Yeah.
It's like it is.
All right. But it sounds like to me he doesn't have any faith in the city right now, and he's pointing the fingers at the Democrats. But like you say, he's a Republican. He's a former, so him saying, what do you have to lose? See, I think that's a bad sign too when people make you feel like.
See, when Republicans say that, well, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? By Gary Bryant invitation. Right. What do you have to lose by electing a Republican? You have nothing to lose, but there aren't any Republicans to elect.
Right.
It's a Democratic town, so it's a moot point to say such a thing. It's not like people are choosing the Democrats over, 50,000 Republicans. There's 60,000 people registered in Hartford, most of whom are Democrats.
Right.
The only elected Republican in the city is the registrar of voters.
That's the only one.
Right. So, the working families is the minority party, not the Republicans. So there aren't any Republicans trying to run for office.
But I think what people like him and other people are trying to do is convince the registered voters and the people growing up to switch the party. Don't buy into the Democratic Party.
I would suggest that maybe they ought to focus on their own party and getting some people in office.
Right.
Since they have nothing to lose, they may want to try to start with electing a Republican governor.
Yeah, that's true.
They commiserate too much. They're sitting around talking about what's not happening. They're just as guilty as Democrats.
Exactly.
They spend too much time talking.
Yeah. And I think because they don't have the real power and authority in Connecticut, I think that's more their biggest concern than the people. They'll make it seem like they feel they could do a much better job for the people.
Well, if they can get elected, they can do a better job. First job they need to do is get in office.
Get in office. All
right. Let's talk about getting in office. Then they can complain. Right now, they can't even get elected.
Right. That's true.
Right. So, don't bemoan the fact that you're not there. Get there. That's the biggest thing.
All right.
If you can get in, now you can do something. They can't get in.
They can't get in. All right. Well, maybe I'll mention that to him the next time I speak to him. Maybe if he gives me enough time. That's the problem. You have limited time with them, and they control the mic too. Well, that's fun.
Well, they're supposed to control the mic.
But well, thank you again for the opportunity to have this show this morning, Stan.
Jonathan Small every Monday, live, right?
Live.
All right, always with great guests. My friends, you have a great rest of your day. Special thanks to our guest that was here this morning. Great program, Jonathan.
Okay, thank you again.